Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. With me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, it's a very chilly Oregon right now. It's like cold outside. We're topping out around the low 40s and a little wet, little dreary as well, but it's been clear, but mostly cold. So we are headed into Thanksgiving week this week here in the United States. And as such, I was asking a question in my Facebook group about what people are thankful for. And I said that the number one thing I am thankful for is my health. And perhaps that was on my mind because of the conversation that I had this week that I'm sharing with you with Deb Gutierrez. Deb is a coach that I've known for many years now, and she is someone that I just really respect in terms of her knowledge around functional nutrition, but also because of what she's dealt with in the last few years. And we're going to talk about that with regards to her health and why I want us all to focus on those habits that we know that are foundational. Minimizing alcohol, that is a foundational health habit. So is optimizing your sleep. So is getting and moving your body. So is getting that morning light. These are all things I've talked about numerous times here on the podcast, going well beyond, right, your drinking, but also why I think it's just so important that we look at how we include alcohol in our lives as an element of our overall health. I think you're going to love and get inspired by Deb's story. So I hope you have a very wonderful Thanksgiving if you are here in the United States. And if you're not, well, enjoy anyway. And here is my conversation with Deb Gutierrez. Good morning, Deb. Thank you so much for being here on the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I am just so excited to share your message with this audience, my audience. You and I have known each other for some time, and you were a guest on my previous podcast, which is like now way back in the archives. But I really wanted to have you come and share what's changed, what's still going on for you, because things have evolved over the course of time that we've known each other. And I think what you're talking about now just will really resonate with people here on my show now, and especially as we head into the holidays. So welcome.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate being here, as you well know, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up today.
Yeah. So let's just start with the basics. Describe yourself in terms of what you do and how you help people right now.
I work as a nutritional therapist and basically helping women, mostly middle age and older, kind of get back to literally just the foundations of health. And instead of always striving for that fat loss thing, which is obviously everybody wants that. And then there's always things that get in that way. So the foundations really being, how are we moving our body? Are we getting outside? Are we, what are the nutrients we're bringing in? How are we sleeping? And then I also have a digestive health component that builds upon that. So some people who have some pretty significant gastrointestinal issues, we do some gastrointestinal healing as well. And so it's really more about your everyday life and how you're living to create the feeling and health in your body that you would like to feel.
Okay. Now, I know, and I want you to share with my audience. So, you are somebody that I've always respected in terms of you look great, you're super active, you've got just a vibrant energy about you, and you've had a pretty long, I mean, your life has been about kind of well-being and nutritional, good practices and things like that. However, you had a pretty significant health scare in the last few years. So I want you to, because it was a big deal, and um, not for the, not for the, you know, for the weak, right? I really want you to share, if you would, what happened and what you have learned from that whole experience and kind of how it guides you today and how you might approach everything that you're talking about, this nutritional wellness and holistic wellness, how it's different today than it might have been even when you and I first talked, 6, 7 years ago.
Okay, so it's almost been 4 years,
Okay. Wow.
and it's coming up on 4 years any week now, basically, right? I mean, it was 4 years ago when I started getting sick. Sorry, I will digress there for a minute. S- my husband says I was built for it. That's kind of this tagline that's come with me because, and I don't want to dismiss that, just because I have worked a lot of years in the health and wellness space, it doesn't mean that that's not possible for anybody to choose that. It's not something you have to have years in before,
Right.
maybe something happens. And we will get hit with a health, hopefully not a crisis, but when I got sick a few years ago, what happened was ended up getting an infection in my heart called endocarditis. And so it's a staph infection in the blood in your heart. And I was sick for a long time before I went to the hospital and was diagnosed with that. And then I was admitted to the hospital at that time. It was very scary. Many physicians at the time, nurses, some other physicians that were not in that realm, actually, that I had to also meet, all said they weren't quite sure how I was alive because the infection had been in there for quite some time. And there was a lot of damage to my heart. And unbeknownst to myself, I discovered I had a congenital heart defect, and which was a bicuspid aortic valve. So basically, it's supposed to be a tricuspid. So my aortic valve needed to be replaced, and they told me I was going to have open heart surgery. In that entire time, I didn't ever feel like, oh my God, why me? Why we? My we? I actually had to surrender, like truly surrender for one of the first times in my life and go, there's nothing I can do here. I need to let people take care of me. And it was definitely scary. So it was right around Christmas. I went home from the hospital the week of Christmas, spent Christmas with my family, and I was on IV antibiotics at the time. And then a few days after Christmas, I had a embolic stroke. And so all of basically that's the blood in my heart had built up and went happily to my brain, primarily hitting the area of the hippocampus. So that has made it challenging to find sometimes words, some memory issues. It's much better, but that was when it was scary. That was
Yeah.
the one time I got really angry, really angry. I'm like, I'm not supposed to have this. And so lo and behold, obviously, I ended up having open heart surgery a little sooner than they wanted to, and all went well. I'm here. It took me about a whole year to recover. I didn't think it was taking that long, but it did. And I am very fortunate that I went into it already with, being in a relatively healthy position. And so I just kept following instructions and doing what I was supposed to do to get better. And I carry that with me today, kind of, when you have a life experience like that, it does change you, but it didn't change me quite as much as I thought. So I was a little hard on myself about 2 years afterwards. Um, like you should have been you were given a chance to live again. Like, what are you doing? Why are you holding back? And so I really realized as I turned 64 this year that now was the time to really like just embrace your age, embrace everything we've gone through, anybody in any stage of their life. When you look back, we've all had experiences that we've needed to learn from. They don't have to be this crisis. And it's what, kind of keeps us going. And we can look inward and go, oh, how do I want to be tomorrow and the next day? And so that's kind of my thing is, am I living how I want to be? And so that's where I'm kind of at today. I hope that kind of makes sense.
It does. It does. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show and I reached out and said, I really love what has been because I follow you on Instagram. I have for years, literally, right? So
Yeah.
I've watched kind of the transformation over time. But one of the things that I think your journey with the crisis really has helped you tap into, at least from my perspective, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but from my perspective, is the healing kind of from the inside out and really understanding that. Would you agree that maybe prior to the crisis, you were maybe a little more stern with yourself and with other people and kind of harder and kind of like I don't want to say militant, but like, very rigid about kind of what was, and then, and I guess if I had to use a word, it's kind of softened you, but in the best way possible.
Yeah. I am one of those many classic, people and women who I'm hard on myself. I mean, I have had many people say, "Why you are so hard on yourself. Like you just come on." And I don't disagree, and yes, am I still hard on myself on occasion? Yes, but you know, it takes away so much joy and it creates more stress, right? To be like that. And I think that going through that experience really did say, okay, you need to take a step back. And then also, you know, I think just in the world today and the environment today and how much more pressure and stress I think people feel on a hour by hour basis. I think I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that with my clients and realizing that, okay, we got to just take a few steps back. And I'm talking to myself here as well. Take a few steps back and really notice like what is happening? Like, why do I need to feel the need to overreact or why am I overreacting? And why am I so hard on myself? I mean, you do have to kind of go introspective here and really kind of get in touch with that. And it gave me the time to do that. I was forced with time, and I don't want people to be forced with time like that if they don't need to be, but to give ourselves time,
Mhm.
in pockets of time, throughout the day if possible.
Yeah. Well, that to me seems like something that we can really dive into here as we head into the holidays, a time when people are, it's inherently stressful. I know, people's schedules get all askew, their plans, their goals, their intentions. I hear it all the time in my space around alcohol. I'm sure you hear it all the time in your world around dietary choices. And, you know, and also just and how we're just spending our time, right? That the time factor becomes such an issue for people around the holidays. So let's talk about some ideas or strategies or thoughts that we might share with people around, like, just some basics for you. What are some basic non-negotiables that kind of like each day you incorporate as they're important to you for your for your overall well-being? Talk
Yeah,
to me about that.
I will. And one thing too, just kind of is being really aware. Like this is a time when obviously our schedules are going to be different.
Yep.
But if the first step in any kind of habit change or lifestyle change, or even just like, if you look back and like, we feel, how did somebody feel last night at the end of the day? Like, kind of like, do I want to feel that way again? Was it a good, and you have to be aware of kind of what of that feeling of where you want to be in even at any given moment so that you can do some things that like I do and these non-negotiables. Um, Getting outside first thing in the morning, is really, really a game changer. And it's the one thing have people establish first thing, and they kind of everyone's like, wait a second, aren't we supposed to change the way I eat? And I'm like, well, we'll get there. But are you even getting outside? And it doesn't matter what the weather is. I live in Idaho. It's not always warm, people. It's could be cold and dark. So if possible, when the sun comes up, to get outside, to be in bare feet if possible, to look towards the sun. We don't need sunscreen first thing in the morning. And it may seem trendy, but it's not a trend. It really is
No,
setting your circadian clock for the day. So getting the natural light, that's huge. Before we open our cell phones, it's so hard. The cell phone thing is so hard for people, and we all know it. We all know we don't want to look at it, but there are numerous studies that show what that does to the brain. And therefore, you starting with your day on a phone and you're already going to be in that stress mode. So, my non-negotiable, get outside first thing in the morning, go for a walk at some point in time during the day. For me, I do like, a little bit longer walks, but I sometimes will break that up. I do go to the gym, not as much as I used to, but I do get there like 3 days a week. I drink a lot of water with electrolytes. These are just, for me, they've become second nature. I don't have to
right.
think about it because I've been doing it for so long. But I do also now meditate. That's a relatively newer thing that I've been doing since February, meditation and journaling, not religious every day. And sometimes that people are like, I'm not going to meditate, and I'm not saying you have to. So meditation can look like many different things in many different ways. But it has been something that's helped me see the world from a more realistic place and with more peace.
I love that. And I could not, I mean, all of the things that you talked about are things that I think people know like intellectually, like this would be good for me. But we talk about non-negotiables like keystone habits, right? Things that really like provide the foundation for. And the reason they're so important is because they conserve our health and our mental energy for those times when we're faced with decisions that about what we're going to eat, what we're going to drink, what we're going to spend money on, what we're going, things where our impulsive nature might take control. And when we have a better foundation, we're just setting ourselves up for success in those moments so that we have the cognition and the cognitive ability to override that impulse brain,
Mhm.
right? I think that's a really one of the reasons it's so foundationally important. Not to mention the fact, like you said, it just makes you feel better in general. Talk to me about breath work because I think that's something too that you have started focusing on, and
Yes.
and it's certainly something I've shared on the Think Thursday episodes here on the Alcohol Minimalist podcast about how important deep breathing is.
So it's interesting. And then, yeah, that's another step I did take after my heart surgery later that year. I went through a functional therapeutic breathwork practitioner course. And it's much different than what people think when they think breathwork. They think same thing. Is this going to be this 45-minute thing? But what the key about that number one is, are we even aware of how we breathe? We are
Mm-hmm.
in a state of pretty dysfunctional breathing, and people are like, what? What does that mean? Are we just being aware of how you breathe? Number one is part of breath work. If we don't know how we're breathing, if we don't know that we can actually change the way we breathe, I mean, we breathe 20 to 25,000 times a day, right? This is how many breaths we take a day, right? It's not something we're really aware of, but we're not breathing well, and that doesn't mean we can't breathe well. So becoming aware of your breath. And when we talk about deep breaths, a lot of times, for example, people will say, take a deep breath. But what does that really mean to people? A lot of times people will like, take a deep belly breath. We don't really want to like put that pressure into the belly or the pelvic floor, quite frankly. Um, so we want to be able to first be aware of our breath. Are you breathing into your upper chest? Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? Do your shoulders rise? Do you feel tense if you start following your breath? So being able to slow our breath down sounds great in theory, but for someone who is already kind of in a stress state, may not really realize that they're breathing, taking that deep breath may also alert them and as to, okay, I'm not okay. I'm not okay here. So then it's even harder to get that breathing down. So there's this huge awareness piece. So for if I was going to talk about that right now and help someone with their breathing right now, it would be, are you aware of your breath? See where your inhale and exhales go. Is your mouth open? Is your mouth closed? And if you can, and this is a great thing, like I know you talk about like finding the habit change for when you might come home from work and automatically have a
Right.
drink, right? So this is a great time to first, like before we even go there, like, okay, I'm home. It's a time for a change, dinner, whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be that. It could be any time during the day. You could be stressed at work. So if you were to take an inhale through your nose and then exhale through your nose, just starting there. And then if we can, we want to think about when we think about belly breathing, instead think our diaphragm. This is this huge muscle, and if it's kind of tightened up, we can't, things don't go up and down they go through our diaphragm, right? The vagus nerve, when you swallow your food, it goes into the stomach there. So we want there to be some flexibility in this big, big muscle. And so when we inhale through our nose, just as slow, kind of slowly and easily, sometimes it takes like 10 breaths to get there, and kind of see if you can expand that area of your diaphragm for belly breathing, right? Both horizontally, not just blowing up your belly. That's can be really helpful. So you're kind of inhaling slowly, and then same with the exhale through your nose, slow as you can, if you can. Want to just get that out. And that can be pretty calming right then and there. So first step is awareness, and I may have dragged on a little bit too long there. I tend to be a little
That's
wordy.
okay. No, it's perfect. I love that. I mean, I think all of it is super important. I mean, you cannot really overstate the importance of breathing. I mean, for people, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of one of those things we got to do all the time. But I do agree with you. I think people aren't really aware. I certainly am not on a. I noticed as you were speaking, right? I
right.
became much more naturally aware, and so
Yes.
hopefully our my listeners are doing that too, and like really just dialing into it, because it is absolutely scientifically proven that deep breathing helps calm the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yep.
And so when people notice themselves starting, notice a feeling of anxiety and stress and whatever, taking deep breaths is just, I mean, it is
Yeah.
a powerful tool. And I think it's also something that you can build a practice around in terms of, again, just becoming more aware of your breathing. And just like you said, we can become better at deep breathing and paying attention, just like we do with everything else in our lives. But it's probably something that many people just
We don't.
neglect.
Nobody.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Nobody thinks about it, right? So
Right.
I that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's
Yeah.
an important piece of what you talk about, and also I think it's just incredibly important for people to hear.
Yeah,
So
I think too, and in reference to kind of your audience, it automatically increases your stress with poor breathing. I mean, it does that. It
right.
keeps you in that hyper mobility of the sympathetic nervous system, right? It keeps you really on fire if we're not slowing that breath down and breathing well. So just that real quick too.
Yeah. So if you're like constantly in this constant overstress, I mean, so many of us live in this cortisol, cycle that is high stress, and and without even realizing it, we are perpetuating it, and our breathing can perpetuate that same stress cycle. But also, as what if I hear you saying, is that we can also interrupt that cycle by implementing some deep breathing,
Yeah, I mean, what a easy way, free,
right?
easy way to go ahead and just do that, a little bit of slower breaths for 2 minutes. It can be 1 minute, it can be 2 minutes, it can be 10 minutes. Great, if you can really do something like that. So that's the kind of breath work
Mhm.
I'm referring to.
Hey, it's Molly, here to talk to you about Sunnyside. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know that Sunnyside is my number one recommendation for drinking apps that help you change your relationship with alcohol. I've been a Sunnyside partner for more than 3 years now. And one of the key reasons that I chose Sunnyside to be my app of choice is that they are really focused on continuous improvement, just like me. And for you, it is continuous improvement of the app in terms of how the customer is experiencing it. They've completely redesigned the progress tab from the ground up, which makes it easier for you to see your progress over time. They've introduced mini infographics to help you better see the big picture of drinks reduced and how dry days have added up since you joined Sunnyside. They have a dry day streak tracker now for those of you that are focused on taking a real extended break from drinking. And they intelligently surface trends in your data to highlight any positive things for you, and like a steady decrease in overall drinks over the course of time. These changes and these improvements are something that Sunnyside has continued to do ever since I started working with them. You can check it out over at sunnyside.co/Molly and get started on a 15-day free trial today. So you've talked about getting outside, being and going for a walk. These are like foundational things. They're obviously things that I think both of us would recommend as strategies as people head into the holidays, as ways to keep mental health strong, to keep your physical, health strong. I know that the nutrition piece of your world is important too. Let's talk about some trade-offs that you're willing to make with regards to nutrition and some trade-offs that you're not willing to make with regards to nutrition, and how that might come about for people as they head into the holidays.
So for me personally, or
Yeah,
as
for
well?
you personally, or and I know for you, like you feel like every single person has like I know you're very customized the way that you work with people. It's like everybody's system and metabolic needs are different, but there's probably some foundational things that you think are important for everybody.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that, okay, I'm trying to,
Yeah, I know. Like,
yeah,
yeah, take 30 years of expertise and just whittle it down into 10
yeah.
minutes. Okay, go.
When I'm working with people, their biggest struggle with that is honestly, nobody it is if they don't eat at home,
Hmm.
that is challenging. And secondarily, they're so confused. So
Right.
let's make no, there's so much noise about what to eat, when to eat, and diet culture, veganism, whatever, all the different
High
things.
protein. Everybody's got to get all their protein.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I'm a fan of high protein, but not without enough fiber. So, so we won't go down that path. So really, once again, it is like, do you notice, number one, if certain things when you're eating don't make you feel well? We
Right.
don't, if you wake up the next day and your energy is in the toilet and maybe you have a little headache and you're really foggy, and maybe that wasn't because of the drinking. I mean, you'll know the difference, right? And let's say you didn't even have anything to drink. That's a kind of a signal of what did I eat, right? So that's number one. But really, what you go back to basics, we forget the basics. Are we drinking enough water? So that's key, and I make sure that I do. So that's something that's important to me. I do drink my coffee. I love my black coffee in the morning, not gonna lie, and that's actually not a bad thing. So coffee's okay. That's the other thing is we label things as bad or good. And so if I don't like to do that, so then I kind of just use that word because that creates judgment on self, and that's the other thing that gets in the way of making choices that we'd like to make. So for me, pretty much non-negotiable. I mean, I try to get as many greens as I can during the day, not only for fiber, but just because more of the colors of food we get in, the better. And so am gluten-free because I'm celiac. So that's kind of a no-brainer. And I know anybody has some digestive issues, we're going to eliminate gluten and very possibly dairy for a while. And I say
Hmm.
that for a while. If you have digestive issues, those are things that we're going to, you know, I hate to eliminate, but for a while, right? So, but as many plants and vegetables as you can get. is always key. I am a huge fan of, I eat a lot of sweet potatoes. I eat a lot of potatoes, potatoes, potatoes. I'm not a huge fan of, at a certain age, after a certain age, we just don't metabolize certain carbohydrates very well. So obviously, even things like rice, I kind of tend to stay away from because you can eat a lot of it really fast and your liver doesn't really like it. So, so to speak. So, I do love a lot of different potatoes and, I mean, I eat pretty basic foods, in the protein world. Yes, I will eat steaks and fish and chicken and etc. And I'm eating kind of quite a bit of fruits. Want to make sure I get that fiber in there. And that's kind of it. I'm kind of boring, but it
Yeah.
works. Simple.
Yeah. Right. That's also part of the message that really resonates is it doesn't have to be complicated. And listening to your body is number one, right? So everybody's body is trying to tell them something about what they're doing. And whether you're over drinking, overeating, over exercising, right? Because that's a thing too. People
Yes, it is.
overdoing it, right? And so I think that that in and of itself, just being in touch with and learning and really listening to your body is something that you have definitely, uh, maybe by necessity, become even more a proponent of. Is
Yeah.
that, do you
Yeah.
agree?
I mean, when I was diagnosed with celiac in 2002, nobody had ever heard of gluten-free or gluten or celiac. I mean, it was just unheard of. So that really brought a whole new awareness into my world. I was like, well, why does that happen? So that became another way of learning. And you just hit on something that made me think of we, you know your body more than anybody else.
Right.
But we forget how to listen because of the noise in the world or and yeah, we do tend to overeat without even realizing it because we're not present as we eat. And then we also will listen to authority figures. Maybe it's a physician. We believe them when they say, oh, well, you're just hormonal. Like, well, how? That's not very fair. Or you're going to be okay. People have stomach issues. I mean, doctors will say that. I'm not, believe me, I needed my physicians and I love them for it, right? I mean, that's a different story. But then we start to not believe ourselves. And you know your body. You know your body. Listen to the signals. It will give you signals. And sometimes that comes with food. Sometimes that comes with realizing you didn't go anywhere today. Like I said, you opened up your computer and you never left it. You never went outside. Those little things make a huge difference. So to tune back into what's going on inside, we're pulled from everything externally. And it's no wonder our, nervous system and our bodies are shot. We have no idea of what's happening internally, but you know your body more than anybody else.
I love that message and I couldn't agree more. And also, uh, the pulled in so many different directions, right? I think that that also one of the things that it creates, not only does it create confusion for people,
Mhm.
but it perpetuates the myth that there's one perfect way, right? There's the one perfect path to happiness, to health, to how to not drink so much, all of it, right? There's one perfect way. And that then fuels the all or nothing. So if I can't do it the one perfect way, because I got to tell you, whenever you talk about gluten, there's this little voice in the back of my head that says, Molly, you really should try that sometime. You really should remove gluten and see how it feels because, you know, first of all, everybody knows I'm a beer drinker and I'm a non-alcoholic beer too, all of which contain lots of
Gluten.
gluten,
It does.
right? And so, like, immediately my brain is like, yeah, that's a hard pass. Nope, not gonna, never gonna be able to do it. Like, cannot do it, cannot pass go. Gluten is gonna, you're just gonna have to, even if there's that little voice that says that might be the cause of some things that aren't like making your body feel well.
Mhm.
And so, I know, I understand that all or nothing mentality and the things that fuel it, right? One of the reasons that, and I'm sorry, I've gone off on a little tangent, but
No,
I
that's
think it's
good.
really, I want people to hear that small steps, small changes. I talk about it all the time with regards to alcohol, which is one of the reasons that, you know, what I share is different than other people because I really do believe that incremental change is possible with regards to how people want to include alcohol in their lives. And I think that that's what I've appreciated about where your message has gone. It's incremental as opposed to kind of all or nothing. So that, like I said, kind of long winded, but it's because there is no one perfect path. There is no one right way. And I think that people want to hear that you can make small changes and listening to your body is the first way to do it, right? Make a small change, see how it goes.
Yeah. I think a lot of times what happens is we're told we're a problem to fix.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just use the gluten, for example. In your mind, the beer, I'm not going to go there. Gluten, I have a problem with. You're late, right? We may not be
Right.
saying that, but there's that thing. But you're not. You're not, this is not a, we are not a problem to fix in ourselves, right? So we tend to be a little bit hard on ourselves. And that's why reconnecting to the body can be a really important place to develop trust with yourself, right? And say, yes, I mean, we can go down a whole rabbit hole with the gluten thing, but once again, if you have some GI issues, that's a sign, of maybe looking at that and just playing with it. Like, doesn't have to be right or wrong, right? Toy with these things that you think might be worth exploring, so to speak. We have to just learn to trust ourselves a little bit again, right? And so same thing. Every single person I work with is extremely different. There are some basic things that I do with everybody. Like I said, we make sure you get outside and we're going to make sure you're drinking your water and we're going to make sure you move a little bit. That I'm going to do with everybody. But what order? Like everybody, we do little steps. There's no possible way, and I think that anybody can make all these changes in a week and stick to it, right?
Right.
Just little steps every day. And it's learning to trust yourself a little bit. And I think that's kind of sometimes ends up being step one, like, oh, I did this one little thing and that made it that big of a difference. That's kind of a grounding place to start.
Yeah. You and I could probably talk for hours about all of this because I enjoy so much of the way that you are incorporating kind of holistic wellness into and functional nutrition and just really bore, like you said, healing from the inside out and really understanding, like listening to your body, listening to yourself, so that on a day that maybe in the past you would have said, oh, I got to get out, I got to go to the gym, I got to do this, I got to eat this, I got to do this, right? Now, if your body is like saying, yeah, I don't really feel like perfect, like that doesn't feel like it's going to work for me today, you might be much more inclined to rest.
Well, I've learned that resting was never an easy thing for me.
Uh
And
huh.
it really is now. And now I do. I mean, I will say, you know, people will say to you, well, you can do that now. And it's true. I don't go to a 9 to 5 job. And those things, but I did at, certain points in my life. And so I do have the privilege, I'm not going to lie, of having a little bit more time because my children are grown. But every single person I work with um, works, long hours, has kids. I mean, a lot of them. So it is finding those pockets that we can find. It's that can really help. And so I don't think you asked me kind of a question and I kind of got lost there, which
No,
can happen with
I'm
my
saying about
brain.
rest, like rest, prioritizing rest that you might not have done in the past.
Yeah. And so now I do. I mean, I still will wake up a little early to make sure that I get my, journaling and meditation done. And I do. I have pockets in the day where I can do that. Now, I was forced also after I had my stroke, I had to close my eyes for 10 minutes every 2 hours. I think it's a brain injury thing that they do. But what that taught me is to how to coach people to do the same. Now, you can't, you're in your office all day. You're not going to be able to lie down, obviously, and close your eyes. But can you, for 1 minute, literally close your screen, put your phone down, and close your eyes for a minute? Those are the pockets of time you can give yourself. And so for me, yes, I was able to say, okay, you were given the gift, and it's time for you to just step back and stop being so hard on yourself. So maybe that answers the kind of direction, but
It's perfect.
yeah.
Deb Gutierrez, can you please tell my audience where they can find you?
I am pretty much everywhere. My website is debghealth.com. So you can always reach out to me there. I am on Instagram every day at Deb Gut Wellness is my handle. But I think if you just put Deb Gutierrez in there, you can find me. And those are probably the most realistic places to find me, my website and Instagram.
Perfect. And I will link all of that in the show notes, folks, so you can learn more about Deb and gut health and, just like I said, and healing yourself from the inside out and all the good things that she's doing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for, I mean, really, thank you very, very much for inviting me. And I really hope that those of you who listen got something out of this to have you just take a little step back, broaden the view, and look a little bit in just in a moment and maybe take a nice, slow, easy breath.
Perfect. Perfect. Have a very happy Thanksgiving this week, my
You
friend.
too. I'm excited. So, yes.
Deep breathing, folks, a little bit of intentional awareness around what you're eating and drinking, and enjoy. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme, or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.